Well, welcome, Tallis Quartet. Thank you so much for being here today. And the subject of today's video is how to play perfectly in tune. Are you up for that? Well, I hope you have the answers, because I don't. Yeah. No, of course, anybody that plays string quartets knows that it's probably the most difficult of all combinations of instruments there is to play in tune, and what we call, quote, perfectly in tune. So one of the points I'm going to be making today, which I think you all know already, is that there is no such thing as perfectly in tune. Right? Because part of what we call playing in tune is subjective. So intonation is not purely objective. There is no scientific way to play perfectly in tune. So certain decisions are subjective, and they're a matter of taste. And then there are certain foundational things which are not subjective, like basically the perfect intervals, like octaves and fifths and fourths, which are pure and really need to be beautifully on the money. Anyway, we will talk about the combination of that a little bit more. But let me ask you, what are the two most difficult chords for a string quartet to play in tune?
Let me think. C major and F major.
C, yeah, I knew you knew.
Oh, yes.
Yes, C major and F major. So, yeah, let's start with a little demonstration of that. So Shannon, let's see, play an open C. We'll add the G of the viola. And violin, play E. Right, so I think we can agree that that's what we would not call that perfectly in tune. Yes.
Call that a bit gnarly.
Yes, right, yes. And nobody's even put a finger on the string yet, right? So we'll come back to that in a second. And what did you say the second chord was?
F major.
F major, let's try that. So there's different ways to tune F major. I'm going to have you play it two different ways. F major has a C in it, which is an open string, and an A in it, which is open string. So why don't you play a C from the viola, and Shannon, you can play a bass F that matches that. Get it really pure. There we go. And if we add the open A string now. Right. Okay, also not really well in tune. Yes, yeah. So let's try it the other way. What if we start with the A? And now you tune to his A with your F. And add your C. Even better, huh? Yes, yeah. It's always the viola's fault. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a couple of things that I want to point out from that when you play string quartets, you realize that most of the really difficult intonation problems, some of them even are insoluble in a certain way, come from the open strings themselves. The other thing I wanted to point out was that, actually, let's do this real fast. Play your C again, and play the F, Shannon. Good, now don't move your finger, and we'll get a close-up on your left hand. Now you drop out, now play your A, and I want everybody to see where you have to move your F in order to match his A string. Right, yes. So that's just a mini demo of the principle that every note, we have 12 notes in the chromatic scale, that to get as close to all chords being in tune as we can get them, that every note has to be movable. That's just one note, but I think we can extrapolate from that. Yeah, it's, you can try one other, just one of you play, or anybody can do it. Play a first finger E on your D string and match it to your G string. Good. Now don't move your finger and play it against your A string. Now show us how you have to, right. So these are just, there's tons of examples like this, but basically I'm just trying to make the point that all notes need to be movable depending on the context that they're in, okay? Now we'll get to maybe the first thing that can help a quartet play in tune. So if I talk for a second about how a piano is tuned, I think probably you all know that before tempered tuning was invented, right, that keyboards could only play in one or two related keys and sound in tune, and if they would modulate to another key, it would sound awful, sort of for the reasons that we're showing right here, right? So tempered tuning, which actually fixes the pitch of all 12 notes, is sort of a compromise that, with a little bit of disguise and things, one can get by with it. But to a quartet player with really sharp ears, you hear that pianos aren't really in tune all of the time, right? You know that, yes, yeah. So the point is that the way a piano is tuned, they will take the A, let's say it's an A440, and they don't tune like in a scale. They will take the A and they will tune a fifth down to D, and a fifth lower down to G, and a fifth lower down to C, fifth lower down to F, all of that. So if the piano tuner tunes mathematically perfect fifths and just goes around the circle of fifths, eventually, after he passes through all of the chromaticism, he comes back again to A, and it's sort of what we call, somebody called it an imperfection of nature, but you come back and that A will be about a quarter of a tone out of tune with the original A, right? So that's called the Pythagorean comma, if you're interested in technical things to do with string quartets, right? So what the piano tuner does is he takes those fifths and he just squeezes them 2 cents together, and then he squeezes the next one 2 cents together, and the next one 2 cents together. So by the time he comes all the way back around through the circle of fifths, the A's are in tune with each other, right? So the reason I'm saying that is because in a string quartet, we have 5 pitches that are immovable, right? We have the E, A, D, G of the violin, and then we have the open C string of the viola and the cello as well. So 5 out of 12 are immovable. So what we do, as you guys well know, is we do what the piano tuner does. We squeeze our tuning closer together so that our open strings, the notes that won't move, will fit into the greatest variety of circumstances, right? So now we have to get to the true confessions part of this video, which is, I told them before we started this not to squeeze their fifths like they normally would, but just to play regular fifths. And that's why those chords sounded so terribly out of tune, right? Yes, yeah. Yes, and I think everybody understands, but let me say it so, right, as strongly as I can. That out of tuneness was not your fault, right?
It actually never is.
Yeah, I won't say it never is, but that wasn't. Yes. Play a open A and let Shannon play her F. Now you guys can play in tune with your instruments here at the beginning, and you play your viola solo, and we'll see what comes out. When she hits the open C, just everybody hold the chord, right? Yeah. Yes, that's what I wanted to hear. That really hurts. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So the point is, I want everybody watching to understand that the reason for that is because you have not tuned your fifths tighter, and so the A in the violins, the open A string in the violin, and the open C string in the viola are totally incompatible, right? So I asked the quartet to retune now. So what we've done is everybody has squeezed their fifths just a little bit together, just as the piano tuner for tempered tuning. And just I reiterate once more, the reason we do that is because there are 5 pitches of the open strings here that cannot be moved. And so we temper tune the quartet in that way. So we've made the point that open strings can cause intonation problems, but if you notice that in the C major chord, it's the third which is too sharp and has to be lowered, right? In the F major chord, it's the A that's too high and needs to be lowered. So this drives people crazy when I tell them that in quartet playing, at least when you're tuning chords, that major thirds need to be low, right? That feels like the world upside down, right? Yeah. Yes, we've always learned that major chords should be wide and happy, and minor thirds should be melancholy and closer, right? So in the world of tuning chords for string quartets, it's just the opposite. Major thirds need to be lower, minor thirds need to be a little bit higher. So why don't you play the opening now of the American Quartet? Yeah. Good. Okay, now do it one more time and put the fermata on her open C string. Right? Yeah, it should be in tune. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so in summary, I guess what we learned today is that open strings are actually the major cause of intonation, or the most insoluble cause of intonation in string quartets, that we can mitigate that quite a bit by temper tuning our open strings, squeezing them a little bit tighter together, that the 2 most difficult chords for a string quartet are C major and F major. And the reason for that is that, well, the C major chord is built out of 3 open strings, but the important part is that the E is the third of the chord. And when we're tuning chords, thirds have to be, you should be able to adjust thirds lower. That's the same thing in the F major chord, it's the A. So there are plenty of other chords that have 2 open strings, like G major. But in G major, it's a B, which is the third, so we automatically kind of fix that. It's when the third is the open string that it causes particular problems.